Jesse, are you ready for rapid fire?
I am ready for rapid fire. I'm all
All right,
fired up.
let's do it. It comes a little bit earlier tonight because, again, we've got a lot of things on these Thursday shows. Over under 89 and a half receptions for Mr. Mayer, Michael Mayer, this season. 89 and a half is the number.
You're getting real good at these numbers. Mayer right now is at 33 receptions in 5 games. That's a 6.6 average, 8 games left, including a bowl game. I'm assuming we're going to include bowl games in these statistics.
Yep.
Following this average, his season would end at 86 catches, with the 6.6 average and the 8 more games. I think it's going to go over, and I think it's because we're going to see more production like last week. I think the first couple of weeks were kind of slower. We obviously see that Mayer is Pine's number one target. They're already best friends. So I just think that we're going to kind of see more weeks of 7 to 8 catches, maybe double-digit catches going forward. I don't think we're going to see any more of those 4 or 5 kind of smaller catch games. So I'm going to go with the over, and I think he's going to get right close to 100.
You know what? I was initially leaning under on this, but like the more everything that you say makes sense, and the more I look at it, like Mayer already has the 33 catches, like you said. The next 2 guys, Lorenzo Styles and Chris Tyree, add up to 33 catches. Styles has 19 and Tyree has 14. And again, they're all, defenses are already devoting extra coverage to him, and he's only getting better. So I just think we're going to continue to see, just what you said, between probably 7 and 10 catches. Drew Pine's just going to keep going to it until they can stop it, and people are going to have to prove they can stop it. Right now, Michael Mayer is a machine, and he is such a huge part of the passing game right now. And again, the focal point and the one guy consistently producing right now, you just got to keep feeding that. And then if they do finally prove that they can stop that, then like you said, you find some other guys. But I think he's going to be right up there, assuming, all the way into that bowl game. I think he's going to end up going over that number as well, and he will have at least 90 catches this year. All right, another over-under. 1.5 Irish running backs who will have more than 100 rushing yards against Stanford Saturday.
So this one I went back and forth with. I'm going to have to go with over. I think Estime and Diggs both get over 100 rushing yards. Estime looking for the 3rd straight game. I think he definitely gets it. Diggs is more of the wild card. Stanford has a really poor run defense, and I don't think they've seen a running attack quite as strong as Notre Dame's too. So both of those things bode well for Notre Dame. And I just think, we're going to see a lot of the same game plan against BYU, running, early and often, making, getting those big chunk plays on first down, setting up 2nd and 6, 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4. And, it's going to be a heavy, steady dosage of Notre Dame run, followed by, kind of short passing downs. So I definitely think that we'll see a lot of rushing yards. And I'm more than convinced that we're going to see 2 guys get over the 100-yard mark.
Stanford, again, allowing 207 rushing yards per game. Surprising that Colgate and Oregon State are the only 2 teams not to have a 100-yard rusher against Stanford's defense this season. USC had one. Washington had one. Oregon almost had 2. Bo Nix, the quarterback, had 141, and they had a running back have 97. So I'm surprised that someone already hasn't had a 200-yard rusher, considering, again, the fact that they give up so much rushing yards. I think the yards from scrimmage thing is easy. I think at least 2 Irish running backs will get over 100 yards from scrimmage. The two with 100 yards rushing, though, I think that if I had to say one, I would go Estime, and then I think the other 2 might be, between like 75 and 90 in that area. But, I think they'll make up with the pass receptions. So I'm going under. I don't think that they'll have 200-yard rushers. I think they've got a really good chance to, once again, have 3 guys with 100 yards from scrimmage, though.
Yeah, and I think we saw a lot of really good things from Diggs last week. I think that he showed a lot of really good runs, and I think what we saw the most. I think what was the most impressive about Diggs's running is, when he was reaching that second level, you saw a lot of kind of using moves to get past the safeties and corners and still being able to keep his feet and his speed. And that's a little contrast to Estime, who's kind of looking to run people over in the hole. And so, yeah, Diggs has a little bit more of that shiftiness, but he can still, get up to top speed out of his cuts and shifts. And, very impressively. I like Tyree still. I just think with the way that, I think Diggs and Estime complement each other better as runners. And Tyree's kind of more of your perimeter kind of, scat back guy that you're throwing more passes to. So all purpose wise, I see Tyree getting there, but straight runners, I think Diggs and Estime. I really like what I saw out of those two last week. And I think with Diggs' shoulder getting better, I think you're going to see more of his game kind of evolve. He's just getting started right now.
Alan says Tyree's going to catch a touchdown pass this week. He's calling that. And Ryan said he found Diggs to be more inconsistent than consistent. So I don't know.
A good problem to have with 3 running backs.
Yeah, it is a good problem to have. Play the hot hand. The resounding sentiment from people, it seems like, who were at the Shamrock Series game in Las Vegas last week was that it was some of the best atmosphere for a Notre Dame game in recent memory, topping Notre Dame Stadium by far. So with that in mind, do you think Notre Dame should consider making Vegas like a regular destination for the Shamrock Series? Like keep Vegas on a regular rotation, maybe every 4 years or something like that.
I like the idea of, potentially kind of rotating and returning, every 5 to 10 years. But the whole point to me of this series is kind of to explore new venues, go to places you've never gone to before. And that's kind of, at least in my opinion, what the premise of the whole series was built on. And this also allows for, more of your fans at a national level to kind of make games that they wouldn't usually. So, if you're putting all the games in one spot, you're not necessarily kind of allowing, maybe your friends up in the Northeast corner to eventually make a game at some point. So I like the idea of coming back and doing it kind of more often, but not like an every year consistent basis.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, not every year. I'm talking about maybe every 4th year, every 5th year.
Every 4th, 5th year. I think it would, especially, considering it. Yeah, it sounded like I had a bunch of friends, posting on their social media, staying at, the different places in Vegas. And it just seemed like a really good time. And the stadium itself was sold out. So obviously, it did well in that aspect. So I think it would be fun to do it and eventually go out there, because I've never, been out to Vegas before.
Yeah, and talking to some guys, like in the media who were at the game, it's a dome stadium, obviously, but it was an open air press box, so there was no glass on the front of the press box, so they could really hear and feel the environment, and so, like. Again, they said it was some of the best that they've ever seen. And I think a lot of people will go to Vegas, like I've said, Seattle, I think would be cool, or San Francisco, some of these other places, and even places that they've been are cool. Like, San Antonio, they've been to DC, they've been to New York City. A lot of people like to go to Vegas, and, a lot of people will get their drink on and buzz around Vegas and do their thing. So I'm sure that helped from an atmosphere standpoint as well on a Saturday night in Las Vegas. And really, they're a couple hours behind us time-wise, so they still had plenty of time to go out and do their thing afterwards. It was just part of the party. So I think it would make a lot of sense, just because again, you get that kind of buzz, you get that kind of atmosphere. I don't know of any other places like that, again, people would be like, man, I got to go, to Arizona, I got to go to Phoenix, it's hot out there. You can jump in the swimming pool or whatever, but you're not going to be able to do the kind of stuff that you can do. There's entertainment in Vegas. There's obviously gambling in Vegas. There are other reasons to go out there. You can pack a lot into a couple days in Las Vegas. So the fans seem to enjoy it. So I think it might be worth looking into. So Stephen A. Smith, Jess, this is juicy. I just saw this today. Stephen A. Smith had some things to say about Brian Kelly this week, and I will read it to you. Quote, this is from Stephen A. Smith on Brian Kelly. I am not hearing anything good about Brian Kelly. I've interviewed him a few times in the past. I know he had a stellar record at Notre Dame. I like him. They looked awful at LSU last week. Awful. Tennessee just rolled over them 40-13. I'm hearing the players ain't fond of him. The administration ain't fond of him. The fans ain't fond of him. The town ain't fond of him. End quote from Stephen A. Smith. Are you surprised by any of this?
I guess I'm surprised that like Stephen A. Smith has the inside scoop because he's not really known for
Like a
the
college football insider?
well, yeah, just not like football in general, and then college football, and then so like it's kind of like asking the legitimacy of all these kind of things. But I just if that's the case, I guess I am a little surprised because of where things ended last year and kind of where they are. Right now, yeah, they lost to Florida State to open the season, but Florida State's a pretty good team. First game of the year, had some mistakes. They lost to a good. I know you don't want to get blown out by Tennessee, but Tennessee's another good team. So I am a little surprised. I think that people are kind of maybe overreacting here a little bit. Nothing's kind of fixed in the first season, especially when you're kind of being tasked with overhauling a program that just won a national championship, not too many years ago. So I just, with everything that's going on and, the fact that they're not like 0-6 or something, I am a little surprised. I think that, things are being kind of jumps the gun here a little bit.
I mean, you knew it was a matter of time. We all knew it was a matter of time. Driscoll tried to tell them, this summer, and they all, everyone's over, like, just can't believe, it's kill the messenger. Nobody wants to believe it because the great Brian Kelly won all these games at Notre Dame, and now he's at LSU, and he's the greatest coach ever. And everybody up here, nobody's surprised that there are other sides to Brian Kelly. Am I surprised that they've maybe turned so quickly? Yeah.
Right.
And like to your point about Stephen A. Smith maybe not being a college football insider, he's probably talking to his guy Marcus Spears because he's an LSU guy, and they walk around the building, I think, probably together,
right,
every day. So that could be his source. I don't know, but I don't think anybody up here is surprised to hear this at all. Did you see any tears shed when Brian Kelly walked out of the Goog after he dropped in and talked to the team before he left? No. Did you see excitement later in the week when Marcus Freeman was announced? Yeah, you saw a lot of excitement. And again, there's the polished front that Brian Kelly puts on when he decides he wants to put it on, and there's those prickly moments when he stands at the podium and he's a little ticked off and he's tired of being poked a little bit, and I'm sure that a lot of people are seeing that down there right now. So I'm not surprised at all, but again, maybe I'm surprised to see it kind of rear its head so soon, because they did have, the only thing I'll say on his side is they had a horrible roster, coming out of last year, and they had a lot of roster turnover as well. And it wasn't going to be easy. They played decent defense before last week, but Tennessee also has one of the two, maybe the best offense in the country. So again, I'm not going to shed any tears, but I'm not surprised to hear any of this stuff at all. Okay. Who has more to prove in tonight's Bears-Commanders game? Justin Fields or Carson Wentz?
In my opinion, Carson Wentz has a lot more to prove. His coach had some tough criticism of him this week. The Commanders are struggling at 1-4. The Bears and Fields haven't been playing bad of recent. They did some really nice things against the Vikings last week and potentially could have came out with a win on a last-second drive, kind of going down for a field goal. And I think Fields kind of knows his role in the offense more. Fields has less kind of overall role in the offense because the Bears, they don't really pass the ball, and it's not even close compared to other teams. How many times they're attempting to pass the ball. They're clearly trying to run the ball, establish some run games. So I just think because of, Carson Wentz and what he means to the game plan, and just kind of overall, just the animosity this week kind of between Ron Rivera, the whole team, where the Commanders sit. I think Carson Wentz has more to prove, but lucky for Carson Wentz, he is 6-0 on Thursday Night Football. So, maybe he stands a chance this week.
I'll just say, I was talking to a Bears fan the other day, and I was like, well, Justin Fields doesn't have any receivers, and the guy's going, these are professional receivers. They're all really good. It shouldn't matter what their level is. He's like, Mooney went up. He made a one-handed, do all this stuff. Well, Mooney is a number one guy, but he's really probably a number three receiver on a good team someplace else, right? But he's number one, which means that number two and number three are really, like threes, fours, fives, if they're on another team. They're deeper in the rotation, guys. So I think a lot more is on Justin Fields because he doesn't have an offensive line. But this is a Commanders team that, like, if you're the Bears and Justin Fields, that you have to win. And, like, you're only going to get so much time if you're Justin Fields. It doesn't matter what you do or don't have. The clock is already ticking on Justin Fields and his career, just like it started ticking early on Mitch Trubisky. You've got to overcome whatever is around you, whatever lack of support that you have. And if you're really a number one pick, you got to go out and do it. So to me, it's Justin Fields because he's younger. Carson Wentz, to me, has already proved that he's completely overhyped and completely, there's Carson Wentz is not a franchise quarterback. I think we know that by now because he's on his third team in 3 years. So I don't think there's anything left for Carson Wentz to prove. He's already proven he's not a good NFL quarterback. So to me, it's more on Justin Fields than anybody else in a game like this against a team that you need to beat if you're the Chicago Bears, if you're going to win any games this year.
Yep.
All right. MLB played all of its best of 3 wild card series last weekend on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They say they're thinking about keeping those wild card series on the weekends in the future. So do you buy or sell that as a good idea?
I buy this. I like, with how short of a series it is and the fact that it's consecutive days, it seems to set up for the perfect Friday, Saturday, Sunday format. And also, it's very promoting to kind of the fans, not having to worry about a 1:00 game on a Thursday or Wednesday, getting off of work. I think it just promotes a lot of fan attendance when you can put them on the weekend and, people can block out their days and go to the games rather than kind of having to worry about, the kids at school and then also, the taking off of work and all that stuff. I just think it lends to better, turnout and just overall, just the excitement. The teams make the wild card. It's a lot of times you see teams kind of sneak in the wild card. So you would like to see those teams kind of, playing these meaningful, exciting games and not half empty stadiums. So I like the weekend format.
Yeah, I think that probably makes a lot of sense. Because when I first heard this, I'm like, well, wouldn't you want to get it? The biggest thing to me is getting it out of the weekend so you're not competing against college football and the NFL. Because, like, as a fan of both, that's the thing to me is, some of the stuff you say about afternoon games and stuff like that makes sense, even though, again, I think it's kind of cool when we get to see some afternoon games every now and then, especially someone who works from home, who can put the game on in the background, that kind of stuff. So to me, like, I didn't get to watch that much, very minimal last week because of the fact that football is obviously on Saturday and Sunday. So I didn't get to watch as much. So I'd rather see it, like maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday personally. So it's not going head to head with so much football. So that I actually could watch a little bit more baseball, but I get your point about the fans and all that stuff as well, and giving them the opportunities to be at those games. But they are playoff games. So, like, if they really matter, you're going to find a way to be there anyway.
I guess that's a good point.
Right? Yeah. DT says he is not a fan of it. And yeah, there you go. DC said, I was literally about to say what your dad said. So he's talking straight to you. All right. Alex Rodriguez and Michael Kay called one of the wild card series last weekend. What do you think of A-Rod as a TV analyst?
A-Rod TV analyst isn't the greatest. I respect his opinions and, he was obviously a great player. I just think that sometimes he gets a little bit in over his head with kind of his actual TV skills. I think he could do better with just, maybe dialing it back and letting kind of, Michael Kay take more of the lead and then just kind of filling in, with the supplemental baseball knowledge in-game knowledge that he has. But yeah, overall, I am not a big supporter of Alex Rodriguez and his TV analyst skills. I do enjoy seeing him kind of on the post-game shows, though, with like David Ortiz and like
That's
those.
where he's best.
Yeah, that's why I think that's like the like the TNT crew after games for basketball is a good comparison when you have a bunch of guys, kind of giving each other a hard time, guys who all played, guys who were, obviously Ortiz and Rodriguez were rivals, and so them, poking fun at each other. I just think that that's better suited for him. I think that the actual in-game stuff is, I wouldn't say too much for him, but it doesn't go with kind of his skill set. I think that the afterwards post-game shows are perfect for him, and I think him trying to extend himself like this is just not as good of a look as he might think.
Yeah, he is classic word salad guy when he is in the booth, doing a live game. He just talks, but there's no real point to what he's saying. Like the interaction that he has with the different players, like with Poppy and some of that stuff with the Fox stuff that he does in the studio is a lot better. He just, I think what says the most about Alex Rodriguez as a game analyst is like you don't see a lot of hate for Alex Rodriguez, right? But what that says to me is he's not saying anything. Like you see a lot more, you obviously see hate for Joe Buck. He's the ultimate, even though he doesn't do baseball anymore. Yeah, you still see it from the football side. There's a lot for John Smoltz and some of these other guys. It's because they actually will say something. Alex Rodriguez never says anything. It's all just very vanilla, talks in circles. There's nothing to it. He's not even explaining rules that well. It's like he gets in that booth and he overthinks everything that he thinks he needs to say because he always wants to put on this public image. And I just don't think that he has ever come across very well. And that's exactly who I was thinking of. We Are Not Marshall is Brian Kelly with the classic word salads. So there you go. Alan is not interested in pro sports.
Man.
Okay, you can be the 1%, Alan. That's cool.
Second time I've seen the comment, just not interested in the NFL or any professional sports. Diversity,
Right.
Alan.
That's right. That's right. Well, I guess we will wrap it up with that, Jess, because we've got the Stanford guy coming up. So maybe Alan will be interested in that since we'll talk a little college football coming back here after wrapping up Rapid Fire. Well, Jess, you have a good weekend. Continue to recover, and I will talk to you next week.
Sounds good. Hopefully we get a good, keep the train moving, another win, keep this winning streak going.
Absolutely. All right. So we will talk to you later.